Hello and welcome to Oakville Matters. Joining me today are two people who are knowledgeable about saving energy for the town, which is something the town has been working hard on for almost as long as I've been mayor. Ralph Kaminsky is our chief building official at the town of Oakville, and Dave Cano is our energy solutions manager. And Dave, Ralph, thanks very much for joining us today. There's sort of two endpoints of this discussion I think I'd like to cover. One is, can we ever get a better building code that's greener and can get us closer to net zero construction? And how are we doing on saving energy? I want to start off with a little brag. When I became mayor, which was quite a few years ago, one of the first things we did was we created a town energy plan. And it really wasn't my idea. It was the town manager of the day's idea. And he wanted to do it for a really good reason. He wanted to save money, which, okay, good, right? So we adopted this thing, and the Association of Municipalities of Ontario set up a learning seminar, and I signed up for it. They were going to teach us how to save energy for municipalities, for our operations. I walked into this thing, and the very first thing they did, they didn't know who I was or anything. I just walked in, sat down, and the first thing they said was, well, if you really want to know how to do this, you got to get the town of Oakville's energy management plan because they're the best. And I thought, well, this is a great way to start. So in all the years since then, I know that we continue to look for ways to save money. Dave, catch us up. From how we got from there to now.
Absolutely, Mayor Burton. Thank you, and thank you for having me today. So I'd say that you're right. We've had a great journey in our energy management efforts, way since back that energy plan was created more than 10 years ago, and we've had quite a lot of people actively participate in introducing energy efficiency in our facilities. I'd say the largest component by far is our desire to target any new construction under the LEED program. So that's Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. We target silver at a minimum for any new facility, and a large component of that program is energy efficiency. So all of our newest construction projects have been rated under that LEED Silver program. And we continue to do so with the newest projects that are coming down the line. And I'd say that we're trying to ramp up our efforts even more with the newest project, the North Park Community Center, where we're trying to get 3 different scenarios for, at least from an energy and carbon emissions perspective, trying to reduce it by 50%, 80%, and the net zero approach, and trying to understand what the differences are in terms of cost, resources, and technology.
So on North Park, would it be viable to build a district energy system there and use geothermal exchange as a way to try to get as close as possible to zero?
It is possible, yes, and it's one of the venues that we're trying to look into, given the size, not only of the community center, but also the adjacent arena, 16 Mile, and the vast amount of grounds that we have surrounding the area. There's a lot of potential for us to introduce a district energy system. We know it's very feasible because we did that with the Oakville Trafalgar Community Center, and that's been very successful. That geo exchange system provides heating and cooling for the entire facility without the need to use natural gas whatsoever. The little gas we use is for domestic hot water.
That's terrific. Now, is there an opportunity anywhere else in town for district energy? The reason I ask, and I chase this net zero question all the time, is Council and I very much would like to require builders of new homes to make them net zero, and it'd be good if we were setting an example.
Definitely, and I think there are a lot of opportunities to use district energy systems, not only for corporate facilities, but just in general for the town of Oakville. I know the community energy strategy that was adopted last year by town council talks about the need to introduce district energy system, not only for all types of facilities throughout the community. And additionally, we finished a study called the Renewable Energy Strategy for corporate facilities. So we've identified geo-exchange, solar photovoltaic, solar thermal, and other technologies that can help us reduce the use of fossil fuels and use cleaner alternatives to heat and cool our facilities.
That's a pretty good segue to our sustainable building design goals. And Ralph, I'd turn to you to describe our goals there.
So just continuing on that, Mayor Burton, we've actually are piloting a geothermal installation in advance of a new subdivision. We're doing that so that the energy will be available. And once it's available and can be shared by the community, we're hoping that more people will take advantage of the technology. Like anything new, it's always very expensive when it's new and there's a smaller demand of resources. So this way we're saying we're gonna test it out where multiple houses will be served by the same system, and hopefully we'll learn something on how efficient this can be and find ways of reducing the costs and making it more affordable.
So who was the builder, or is a builder involved in that, or is that us?
Well, it's Minto Developments that's made the request for, they're actually looking to create 80 boreholes to test the soil and start putting in the system and be ready, as I said, in advance of the approval. So we're piloting this, we're giving the approvals in advance of the zoning being in place and all the other approvals. We're hoping that this will allow the construction to progress at a more reasonable pace. I know government is often criticized for causing delays in the approval process, translating delays into other expenses. So we're saying, okay, we'll help you. We'll meet you in the middle. We'll take a chance and see what this development could look like. And hopefully if it works out, smooth sailing, then we can continue this initiative.
And are any other builders experimenting with geothermal?
I think there are other builders, but not at this capacity. So this is the first time we're actually trying to create a field that will be spread across multiple housing.
All right.
Yeah.
And that sounds terrific. Now, that seems to me, well, my area of concern includes trying to get a building code for Ontario that can move us towards net zero construction of homes. What can you tell us about Ontario's building code?
Yeah.
Will we ever see a green building code?
Well, we may, but like any initiative like that, where we're going to create a performance standard, it takes longer to conduct a review to do an evaluation of the performance standards. My preference would be that we go to the design community and support the design community and encourage the design community to come up with these innovative solutions, and our end find ways of fast tracking those approvals, embracing and celebrating the success of those approvals. I think once it becomes mainstream and we understand how this works, now we can say, okay, let's introduce these efficiencies into the codes. In my experience, when we bring things into the code too early, the industry objects to it, said it doesn't work for us anyway. So we're creating another obstacle. I believe if we support, as I said, the design community and hold them responsible and reward them, I think that we'll have a greater chance of success.
So how would that work? Like, who do you mean when you talk about the design community? Like, help me understand that.
So architects and engineers, quite often the building departments are used as the scapegoat. So I can't do that because the building department won't let me, which is a good thing. But it shouldn't be blaming the building department for not allowing you to do something. So as a professional architect, as a professional engineer, as a professional planner, the regulations say that you must be involved in this project. You've been trained and educated to provide the service. Provide the service. Provide the service. And if you're getting flack from your developer because it's an expensive solution, well, that's a separate issue. We can support you on saying that there are benefits, there are cost benefits to this. In my experience, on a smaller scale, people tend to follow what's written in the prescriptive version of the code because it's cheap. Yeah. The designers will tell you, if you pay me to design a solution, the design will be more expensive, but the net building costs will be reduced and you will save energy. But people don't understand the advantage is to invest in a good quality design, not rely on the minimum standards of the codes to say this will solve all our problems.
And so if I may add to that, sorry, Raf, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
If I may add, I think you're hitting a very sour point there, that we usually focus a lot on being very prescriptive about our designs, about what we want to accomplish, and we talk about the specific materials that we want to use, and we put a lot of attention to those details. But I think we need to move away from that, at least from an energy and carbon perspective, and to talk more about performance. If you tell someone my performance goal is I want this to become a net zero carbon and low energy facility, you tell me as an expert what technologies should I be using, what should I do to my building envelope, and how does that tie into the current building code and exceed it? And then start using that expertise from these architectural and mechanical and electrical firms that really have the pulse on the things that can help us move these kinds of projects forward.
So do we need any changes in legislation or regulation to enable you to greenlight these design community people?
I don't think we need change in the regulation. I think the community just needs to embrace that and start to understand that there are efficiencies. When we use a prescriptive code, we have one solution for every application, and that doesn't make sense. That the buildings function as a system. One decision has an impact on another decision. A prescriptive code doesn't recognize that. The prescriptive code doesn't give you credit for having buildings on the south side of a building versus the north side. We say you can only have so many buildings on each elevation, regardless of north or south. From an energy conservation, it doesn't make any sense. Why would you allow a building to have the same amount of windows on the north side of the building as the south side of the building? Because the building code says so and the zoning bylaw allows it. Okay, well, neither one of those are considering the energy efficiency and the energy costs.
So does our building code force you to, I mean, I'm not understanding whether we need changes in the building code or not.
Again, I'm not convinced the building code changes are the only answer. I'm going to go back to what I said about the design community. We need to embrace the design community and recognize good design. If we celebrate good designs and highlight what was completed and how it benefits the community and the homeowner in energy costs, that may be the answer.
So,
right
so
now,
you're free to do that already then, you're saying?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh. Well, then I'm going to stop nagging the Ontario government and I'm going to start nagging you.
Well, nag the professional associations and say to their membership, stand up and do your job. Don't say to the builder or the developer that I'm going to do a substandard design because you don't want to pay more. Convince them that there's savings, that it's to your benefit to invest in a good quality design.
Well, then maybe the public's having the benefit of watching policy evolve right before their very eyes here, because my next question is, what do council and I need to do to make that encouragement happen every day here?
Well, I think we're doing it, and I'll let Dave speak to that, but by the town on its own facilities, building to this standard and boasting about having those standards and start sharing the energy savings and the impact it has. I think if we message, we're doing it, and we're going to show you the benefits. We're going to say, yes, we paid so much more for the design, but guess what? We saved in our energy efficiency, and these are the benefits we have.
Yeah. And just adding to Ralph's comments, we already have a sustainable design guideline available for all internal projects. So any corporate facility has to abide by those guidelines. However, they're just guidelines right now. So we cannot really go to the architects and say, you have to do this because it's not mandated. What we're trying to do, and we're going to start this year, is we're going to develop a sustainable design standard that's more performance-based and looks more at what are we looking as a goal within the next 30 to 50 years for each facility. Let's incorporate life cycle costing and then life cycle perspective for our facilities, and cost it out. Identify what alternatives do we have, what type of renewable energy technologies can help us get there, and determine what the business case is for each facility as we move forward. And I'd say, yeah, it's pushing more back to those designers, telling them, okay, I'm giving you free rein. I know it's going to be more costly, but I understand there are benefits associated to it. But I need you to tell me, how can we really push forward the envelope on these projects?
Well, it's music to my ears. And I have to confess, for years, I've assumed that we're in handcuffs handed out by the province in the form of a rigid building code. I didn't realize there was any room for us to push back at the local level. What else can we do, Ralph and Dave?
One of the things we're trying to do is with the use of the modern technology, building information modeling, or BIM, we're hoping that we will be able to see a submission where the benefits of the decisions are easily explored and shared. So when an application is being received through the site plan approval process, we'll be able to ask questions about what are the energy implications of these decisions. If we ask you to change your landscaping plan as an example, how would that impact the energy efficiency of your building? In some of the examples right now, the designer is restricted by what our rules and regulations are around the site plan approval process, because we have our mandate of landscaping requirements, open space, parking space for all these various agencies. The opportunity that exists now using this modern BIM technology is that it allows us to study the impact one decision has on the other. Right now, we're working very siloed in that. So from a landscaping perspective, this makes beautiful sense. It looks fantastic. From an open green space, absolutely fantastic. From an energy efficiency, maybe not so much so. But because we look at them individually, it's very difficult for all those concepts to be harmonized. And we're hoping that with the modeling, as an example, we'll see the entire building. We'll be able to understand the effects of those buildings. Within that building model, we'll be able to understand the effects of the decision. If I change these windows from this to that, what impact will that have on my heating and cooling costs? If I change the landscaping, if I change this, if I change that. So I think there's a real opportunity for us to say, let's look at things differently. Let's not rely on a report to tell us what's going on. Let's look at the model and do a cause and effect analysis on what these decisions actually make.
Well, it's an interesting idea, especially in today's environment where the province wants you to do all that site plan approval processing way faster. So I guess you're going to have to find some kind of time efficiency in all that work as well.
I think there will be. I think once we understand the technology, some of these challenges or opportunities can be embedded right in the software. Because we're not there yet, we don't understand what our constraints are. And as you know, Mayor Burton, we've been looking at piloting a BIM submission so that we can get a better understanding of what that will mean in the building department. And then hopefully once we get a sense for it, we can share that with our planning department, we can share that with our engineering department, and we can start to see how all these opportunities fit together.
Well, I wish wings for your feet, so to speak.
Thank you.
Anything we can do on council, please let us know. Now, one of the things that bedevils council and me about energy use is, as hard as we work on the municipal side of the community's greenhouse gas emissions, we're a very small part of the bigger picture. Rounding off and speaking generally, about a third of Oakville's total greenhouse gases seem to come from our cars and about a third from our homes. And the other third seems to come from, I guess, industrial uses and other things that are really beyond our control. And of course, what an individual resident or the aggregate group of residents will do with their cars and their homes is also beyond our control. And some cities have estimated that the city's portion of a community's greenhouse gas emissions is maybe 10%, if that, of the total. Dave, do you have is that roughly what you understand it to be?
Yes, I understand the same, Mayor Burton. Yes.
So, we could be really, really good and cut our 10% to zero, and we'd be nowhere. We wouldn't be even scratching climate change. So that's why council and I are so interested in ways to make new homes, because we're going to be building quite a few of them, more energy efficient than the old ones. And at the same time, we're also looking for ways to encourage people to retrofit their homes to be more efficient. And we of course are exploring using local improvement charge mechanisms to facilitate that for residents. And in our conversation, I've been focusing on what can we do around new buildings, our own and those of the community building industry or the developers or whatever we're going to call the developers and builders. Frankly, I was surprised and delighted to learn from you guys that the developers and builders are actually thinking about and in some cases acting on this. It makes me want to try to figure out how to encourage the good guys and discourage the others. Or maybe I should say encourage everyone to become a good guy. What's your experience? Is there a growing, I mean, what's happening in the industry?
Yeah, the Ontario the Ontario Home Builders Association, as well as the Canadian National Home Builders Association, they've been on the net zero campaign for a few years now, and they've really been pushing the membership and again, trying to recognize and reward home builders for building to that standard. I think the renovation contractors, they're a little bit more difficult to try to get on board. And I think you hit on it. I think they have a big part of the puzzle to play, and incentivizing them, I'm not sure. I mean, our building permit fees aren't that significant. If we reduce the building permit fee, it's not enough money to make a difference. I don't think it amounts to a couple $100 on a renovation to a home.
Well, I know I renovated a home some years ago when I moved to Oakville, and you were the least of the costs.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I'd say yes, on the flip side to the new developments and new construction, I think we have the vast majority of buildings in Oakville are already there. They already exist. So there's a huge opportunity to look into what they call now as deep energy retrofits. Really understanding we have facilities that could be 50, 100 years old. So what does it mean? What do we need to do from a technical perspective and from a financial perspective to bring those facilities to a net zero standard and really make an impact in our town's greenhouse gas emissions and the energy use? So I know internally the town's looking at doing feasibility studies for a few of our facilities and trying to bring them to a net zero standard as well. So we're not only focusing on new construction, but also what do we do with the infrastructure we already have.
Well, I know we've got, I think, aggressive greenhouse gas reduction targets from now out till 2050. How are we doing?
I think we're doing well. I think we are in a good path to reach our targets by 2050. However, we're also at a point where we're running out of doing those, what they call the low-hanging fruit, really those quick wins that can help us showcase that we're able to do energy efficiency projects. And we're starting to delve more into these longer-term capital projects that really require a bit more attention and more innovation and more collaboration to really get to those goals by 2050.
Yeah, I would hate to think about, thinking back to when Town Hall was designed and built, and actually, I guess it was built in at least three steps, maybe four. I'd hate to look at the energy budget for this building, but you must look at it.
I do, yes, almost every day. I'd say Town Hall is probably the fourth largest energy user in the town. Considering it's one of the most important buildings, it fares pretty well. And we've done a lot of energy efficiency projects within the facility as well. And it's something that we continue doing every day. We do have access to a lot of meter data. We have sub-metering installed in several facilities around town. And we have a building automation system installed in most of our major facilities. So that allows us to have a better control and understanding on how energy is being used.
Well, there's a lot of land around Town Hall. I suppose that if land is good for geothermal piping and everything, maybe down the road we can retrofit, switch out the Town Hall's energy source to geothermal. I hesitate to guess what that would cost, but maybe the savings would someday pay for it.
Maybe, and it's also included as part of a more town-wide strategy for district energy systems. It's something that the cost can be shared with other organizations surrounding town hall. So it's something that we could definitely look at for the future.
Well, I think we're going to have to, if we're going to do our part to meet the greenhouse gas targets and energy targets of the country, and never mind the world. I think we know that we're an insignificant part of the world's problem, but we figure that we have to set an example. If a community as well off as Oakville can't make any progress, then how can you expect others to do their share?
Yeah. So you mentioned the amount of carbon footprint from the vehicles. You'll be happy to know that we're, I think, 3 months out from switching to a complete electric fleet for the building inspections. So no gas vehicles for any of the building inspectors.
Well, we're I don't know how, we're very near getting our first electric bus, and we have the funding to convert half the fleet. Nice. And I'm actively lobbying for the funding to convert the other half. Ever since Brampton got the money to do all of its fleet, I've been saying to the federal government, what are we, chopped liver? So let's hope that we can continue to make progress there. So anything else as we wrap up? We've got less than a minute, and this is your chance to bring out anything I forgot to ask about.
I just have to say that I think the town understands its role as a leader in protecting the environment and reducing our emissions. So we will continue to work hard with the community to make sure that we showcase our leadership through our results.
Well, thanks very much, Ralph and Dave, for joining me today. And thank you for watching. And I hope that it helps you understand that in addition to the Community Energy Plan and Future Energy Oakville, which is focused on the community at large, the town itself is still doing everything it can to carry its weight and reduce its energy and its greenhouse gases. Please join us next time. Thanks for watching.